next guest has made his name by being ahead of the curve. Reid Hoffman is a serial entrepreneur. He is the co-founder of LinkedIn and a founding team member of PayPal. He has invested in some of Silicon Valley's most famous startups, Facebook, Zynga, and others, before anyone had heard of them. Fittingly, his new book is titled The Startup of You. Welcome, Reid.
Great to be here.
Now, you talk about in this book the idea that really you should think of yourself as an entrepreneur. What are you saying that's different?
Yep. Well, I think there's kind of two things. The first thing is that everyone should think about themselves as the entrepreneur of their own life, as the CEO of their own career. And all the things that apply to businesses, you should think about applying to yourself. Not just brand, but also how do you invest in yourself? How do you have competitive differentiation? How do you use business intelligence in order to navigate? Now, what that means is in terms of technologies, you should be deploying technologies and study, like using the internet, using LinkedIn, to figure out how to invest in yourself and how to essentially build your skills, build the connections to people, learn what's going on in industries, and to be able to kind of navigate the new world of work. Because it's changing. It's globalization, technology is disrupting industries. How do you navigate that, both to protect the downside, e.g. not get laid off and in a bad industry, and also how to get upside in terms of how to find the right kinds of breakout opportunities. And I think since technology is the driving force both behind globalization and behind industry disruption, attuning yourself to what technology change means for you is, I think, very important.
So you found in your life that sort of these meeting people, learning new things from them, this was crucial?
Yes. I think it's critical for everyone. Like, for example, one of the things we advocate in the book is think about who you're going out to lunch with, and occasionally go out to lunch with someone who is, presumably smart, accomplished, maybe 2 degrees away from you. I mean, that's, I think, how we first met. And then have a conversation with them where you're learning from each other. Like, what's going to change in the world? Where is the world going? How is technology changing? Because then that helps you have the skill set and the knowledge to be adaptable and to be inventive in what you're doing.
When you look at the competition that Silicon Valley faces, do you think that the United States can retain its edge in technology?
Generally speaking, the answer is yes. I think that Silicon Valley continues to be a global leader in the kinds of technology it does. Now, I think there's a number of policies we need to be more intelligent on. High-end immigration is one of the ones that every Silicon Valley person beats that drum, because it's really important, because you're either going to import the talent or export the job. It's very simple. And if you keep the job here, that person then employs restaurants, dry cleaners, accountants, auto mechanics, the whole thing, and that creates a whole wealth of ecosystem. Now, I do think that one of the things is we need to work a little bit more on some technologies, like manufacturing technology and other kinds of areas, because I think we're world-class at software, but I think we still have a ways to go. Like, I think we may be competitively not at the absolute leading edge. I'm not a deep expert there, but I think there's a set of technologies we should also be investing in.
Do you think that when you look at the young people who come out today, are they, in terms of science, technology, energy, dynamism, still world-class?
I think there's a group of them world-class which are really good. I think we could quite happily 10x that number and still be really under where we would need to be. And
so you feel there's a shortage of people with the kind of skills you need?
Absolutely. I mean, and in fact, actually, given the technology is part of what sets the drumbeat for the future, having many more people with their hands on, I know how to participate in building, understanding, deploying technology. I mean, like, one of the things that I've come to realize is every organization should have a technology strategy. Technology is disrupting industries. So it's not just, what am I doing in IT and which system do I use? It's how is technology changing the game that gets played in my industry, changing the nature of products, changing the nature of how we can deploy a service. If we use data, how do we use data to be a good business? And so part of that is coding, but part of that is understanding, well, how does that fit into business strategy? How does that fit into marketing? How does that fit into product design? It's all aspects of it in terms of being competent in the modern world.
Do you think that all these new changes are moving so fast, from the mobile to big data to cloud computing, that it's conceivable that 10 years from now, the top technology companies in America and the world will be a totally different set of companies?
I think that the transformational speed, right? For example, I think in the 20s and 30s, the average tenure in the S&P 500 was 65 years, and the 90s was 10 years. So that transformational speed, you have to invest in the future. I think that applies to organizations, that applies to individuals. And given that accelerating rate, I think it's perfectly possible that the transition happens even at an accelerating rate. Now, what that means for individuals and organizations is you need to keep investing and reinvesting in yourself. In the book, we refer to that as permanent beta, which is never think of yourself as a complete product. By the way, that should be a company as well as an individual. And always be thinking, how do I invest in the future? How do I invest in the next generation, next wave?
So when you apply the lessons of the book to yourself, do you, I mean, at some level, you're, incredibly successful, fabulously rich. Are you done, or do you think of yourself as very much still a work in progress?
I still think of myself as a progress and a permanent beta, because...
So what happens next?
I think being a part of the modern world is being curious. So I always ask people, what should I know? What questions should I be asking? Because that's part of how you then adapt to the future.
Reid Hoffman, pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
And we will be